This is a Petrifica by Maddie Rubio, Elizabeth French, Shelby Walsh, and Brianna Kids. It is comparing Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven to a blog entry on a site called Soul Bank, which is a site where people with paranormal experiences share their stories. The story we are using is about a woman's encounter with the devil and how she copes with being exposed to so many spirits. Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven was published in 1845. This poem takes place in what is described as a supernatural atmosphere. It is about a man who has an unusual encounter with a raven, whom he initially believes is a deceased loved one, Lenore. Edgar is still in the mourning process, and he believes this raven is Lenore. While in the grieving process, you believe what you want to believe. The blog post was written by a woman who had an encounter with an evil spirit. The post is titled, "The Devil Tried to Take My Soul and Other Stories from the Mental Hospital." She claims to have met an unpleasant old lady who revealed herself as the devil. The author of the blog post often investigates an insane asylum and searches for dead ghosts. Edgar Allan Poe grew up in a home where his father abandoned him, his mother, his sister Rosalie, and his brother Henry. His mother raised her children to the best of her ability, but died when Edgar was only 3 years old. Soon after, he discovered his father had passed away too, and Poe and his siblings were split up to different families and adopted between them. Poe ended up living with the family in Richmond, Virginia. He did not get along with the father of the family because the father thought that Poe was an ungrateful troublemaker with a bad attitude. Later, Poe attended the University of Virginia to study ancient and modern languages. When he had failed to do this, he enrolled to the army because he could not support himself. The act of ghost hunting is not looking for ghosts in any random place. Ghost hunters will look for them in places where ghosts have been sensed. Locals who have experienced ghosts often do not return to the place where they had contact with the spirit. Ghost hunters are drawn towards these places to get answers to their questions. Oftentimes, locals don't return because of the eerie feeling. There are several options when communicating with ghosts. A few of them are, they use specialized, state-of-the-art equipment to communicate, and ask them questions that they can relate to, like, why are you stuck here, what happened to you, and how did you die? But sometimes a medium will be brought in to communicate with the spirits in real time, through their minds. A woman in the blog described what it was like to speak with spirits. Her and her team heard a loud voice, clear as day, say, "Is that all you want?" as a response to their generic questions. They repeat questions because they don't hear the spirit's response until they go back and look at the audio. They question, "Are you really the soul of a dead man, and how can you talk to us?" We have analyzed not only the backgrounds of the authors and the content of the pieces, but also some rhetorical elements in the pieces have in common. The two elements we have identified are cacophony and anacoluthon. A rhetorical element is a device used to help manipulate the language to help relay what the author is trying to convey in the text. The Webster's definition of anacoluthon is a sentence that lacks grammatical sequence or structure. This rhetorical element is found both in the Raven and the blog entry. They most likely occur in pieces because they both have to do with traumatizing supernatural encounters, because of the unexpected conversations, the break in the sentence. Anacoluthon is present in the Raven due to the speaker's questioning of his supposed visitor. As the speaker is talking, he is interrupted by the rapping at his chamber door, causing an abrupt change in his speaking, and therefore the grammatical structure of the sentence in the poem. This breakage at the end of most stanzas as well as throughout each of the stanzas. In this blog entry, anacoluthon is shown in a similar way that it is in the Raven. The woman is describing her frightening encounter with a spirit and clearly experienced some confusion and questioning with this event. When she writes about the questions she asked the ghost and her experiences with the devil, she writes it in a way that is kind of choppy and casual, and then the blog should be. In literary terms, cacophony refers to the use of combining sharp or harsh-sounding words. These words often refer to sound words, similar to that of an onomatopoeia, using words that make sounds such as buzz or hiss. An example of cacophony in the Raven is the rapping and the tapping at my chamber door. This rhetorical element is important in the Raven because it really emphasizes the eeriness of the poem. Poe was very eerie himself. He was reserved and very mysterious. The use of cacophony in the Raven is when Poe describes the rapping and tapping at the door, breaking up the words to make the sentence not sound so put together and a little bit messy, just like the Raven is. Cacophony is used in real-life situations like the blog, so the story or piece sounds more intense and dramatic. When someone is telling a story, they might pause and leave you hanging on the edge of your seat, which makes you want to know what they are going to say next. This is done both in the blog and the Raven. Cacophony can be used both in nonfiction and fiction to make the story more interesting. Anacoluthan and cacophony are crucial elements to the theme and tone of these pieces of writing. They represent the feelings that go along with paranormal encounters. The harsh sounds of the cacophony bring in the spooky tone that is in both pieces of writing. With the poetic structure of the Raven and the casual writing style in the blog, both cacophony and anacoluthan can be fit into these elements. The most difficult part of comparing these two pieces was that the rhetorical element cacophony is rarely found in nonfiction forms of writing. This is somewhat fictional descriptions of noises. It was challenging to find nonfiction writing that used as much of this element as Edgar Allan Poe uses in The Raven. That is why we use a blog entry, because it is more casual and understanding. There were not only similar key rhetorical elements, but also similar ideas in the plots of these two stories. We analyzed the similarities and differences, linking both the fiction and nonfiction pieces to somewhat of a darker central idea. This helps us to identify which rhetorical elements would be most helpful and why. Other rhetorical elements were present in both of these works, as they are in all literature. The cacophony and anacoluthan were the most prominent and most important in conveying the image in which the author is trying to get across. This is a fact of the rhetorical elements. Our presentation was analyzing these elements and their effects on two very different yet similar works. The poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe is one of the most classic American pieces of literature in history. It is a very eerie, dark story, but is very intriguing and makes you want to read more. It is a very interesting concept and story.